Welcome back to the Blog Boy Roundtable. We've got basically full complement of Blog Boys this week from the Bay Area Examiner, myself, Anthony Vito, Nathan Bond, and Robert Stieg. From DraftKings Network, Nick Simon. Last week, we picked every single conference championship game, and I think we actually went 500 as a group, which is pretty wild.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Or I think, you know what? I think we went a game over 500. So that's pretty good. For 50 picks, not terrible. And our season record right now is we are 165 and 143 for a 53.57% rate there. That's pretty good.
Seth, what's your percentage that you need before you make a profit?
I think it's over 53%, right? Isn't it? So
we're leaving money on the table, fellas. Leaving money on the table.
If you would have just bet every single one of our picks, you'd have made a very small amount of money this year. So like I said, we picked every single conference championship game, and we had some interesting things come out of the conference championship game, namely the playoff. So let's talk. We hadn't really talked much playoff before, but the obvious thing to come out of it was the Florida State snub. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I have some thoughts. I will say first, I'll let you guys go first, but I will say first, I do think they should have got in. Is that kind of everyone thinks they should have got in?
100%.
Go ahead.
No questions asked. Once they won that game and ended 13-0, absolutely you put them in. Everything else you throw out the window because you're not comparing losses. It's a team that had zero losses, and you put them out because you were too afraid to keep the SEC out. And buddy, I was livid when I saw that. Complete shock. I did not expect that was going to happen. When I saw Texas in, I was like, wow, they're going to pull Alabama out, and okay, that's what's going to happen. And then, they faked you out and put 6 up at Georgia. I was watching with no audio, so that was fun to see. I don't see how you do it, and I get like you put Texas and Alabama as kind of a as a group up there, but I don't know what you're supposed to do. You win your games, you do everything you can. Defense played elite that last game. They beat 2 SEC teams on the road, one on a neutral site. They have a better win against LSU than Alabama did. I don't understand how this happened. I mean, I know why this happened, but buddy, it shouldn't have.
Here's I was thinking about this tonight, driving home from work, kind of just decompressing everything from the day. So obviously my mind drifts to the college football playoff because I'm the same person. The committee made a whole to-do about Jordan Travis. Obviously, he was a star in his own right and being fantastic on offense and making, everything go for Florida State. He was my dark horse Heisman favorite we'll get into. I feel like they put a little bit too much emphasis on just him. You look back, 2014, Cardell Jones is a third-string quarterback for Ohio State. They put them in. They end up winning the national championship. 2 of the most recent NFL MVPs, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, were absolute stars, and they were so fun in college, yet Patrick Mahomes never had a winning season at the middle school in Lubbock, and Lamar Jackson had multiple 3-loss seasons. So, even without your star quarterback, Florida State was able to find a way to win 2 very impressive games, right? Against Florida, at Florida with the backup quarterback, and then with your third-string quarterback in the ACC championship game. I mean, what else do you need to do? Like, defense wins championships. You preach about it all the time, and then you knock them because their quarterback sucked. And Seth, I think your counter argument is going to be, well, their offense was absolutely brutal and non-existent with the backups in. Give Tate a month to figure it out. I mean, I don't know. You don't do that. You play to win the games. They won all the games. How do you not let them in? It also didn't help Florida State's cause during the college football selection show, there were multiple like brand new SEC on ESPN commercials spattered throughout. So the optics were less than ideal after the announcement.
Nick, what were your thoughts?
Do you know how asinine it is that your quarterback basically breaks his leg and that's used against you? Like the whole idea is, oh well, Florida State is a different team and we can't let them in. They're 13-0. Like, okay, it's not exactly the same. I tweeted this out. It's not exactly the same thing, but do you know how asinine it would be if the Kansas City Chiefs went 14-3 but then Patrick Mahomes breaks his leg in the last game of the season, and we say, oh well, the Chiefs are a different team without Patrick Mahomes. No one wants to see this team with Chad Henne playing in the playoffs. It's probably best we keep them out. No, like they won the games. Okay, if they get blown out by Michigan, so be it. But they won the games. They're 13-0. They won the ACC. Like what else? Like what else do you want them to do? Like you give the benefit of the doubt to an Alabama team that, quite frankly, okay, this Alabama team did what they had to do. Finished with one loss. Won the SEC. Knocked off number 1 Georgia. Great. But you're penalizing Florida State when we saw this Alabama team lose to Texas. We saw this Alabama team play, and I don't care about Jalen Milroe not playing, play like absolute garbage against USF the following week. And that's not held against them. Then they need a Hail Mary to beat a mid-Auburn team. 4th and 31. They needed that just to beat Auburn. But none of that's held against Alabama. But Florida State gets punished because their quarterback broke its leg. Like it's ridiculous. And again, do you know how badly you have to mess up to make Florida State the sympathetic figure? Like, jeez.
Steve, what were your thoughts?
My big takeaway was that guy that they sent from the college football playoff committee, Boo Corrigan, just an absolute lifeless soul, has never felt joy in his life. I mean, just giving the most mundane answers, and also Reese Davis asked probably one of the best questions I've ever seen directly to a person of power like that. Because when you look at it right now, the 4 teams that are in the playoffs are future teams from the SEC and the Big Ten, right? And there's this preconceived notion of this power 2 struggle. And then if you look at the rest of the college football playoffs top 10, actually even the top 15, I think it's like 13 either Big Ten or SEC schools. And then there's Florida State and someone else I can't remember. But like Reese Davis asked a very direct question. It was like, is there a preconceived notion bias towards the power 2 conferences here? And the guy deadpan just goes, no. We look at the resume wholeheartedly. It's like, no, you're not looking at the resume. It's part of this really crappy direction that this college football playoff committee, when we initially all were pleading for something like this, to basically dismantle the BCS, you put the human element back into it. And then we didn't realize that human element was going to be inherently biased because like all of these people are just part of that good old boys club that's going to give the benefit of the doubt to an Alabama over an FSU, or they're going to give the benefit of the doubt. I mean, even getting Cincinnati in the playoffs 2 years ago was just a miracle in itself. And so many dominoes had to fall to the point where if they left them out, it was going to be egregious. It was going to be a huge, like glaring, like, okay, they're enough with the biases here. And so for me, at least, it now needs to become, they have like the rules and standards in place of how they're going to decide, you know, the 6 at-large schools and then, you know, the 6 conference championships. That helps a little bit because now you have a standard you can't be inherently biased towards. Now that sixth is going to get a little hairy, and if they do change things around, we'll see what happens, especially with the Pac-12 falling apart here. But the light at the end of the tunnel is hopefully there is less inherent biases when they do these rankings going forward. But at the end of the day, I mean, man, you absolutely cannot look at the numbers, look at the various metrics that you can use, the Coley matrix, the BCS rating system that they created, and look at this and say, like, yeah, we should put Alabama ahead of FSU just because they beat Georgia last week. Like, no,
I think there was, though, Alabama would have got in ahead of FSU on BCS computers. I think somebody simulated that.
Yeah, the BCS computers would have popped Texas out. That was
that's what it was.
Yeah.
So
they moved Texas, which again, that's a whole nother argument, but Texas at least looks really good and passes, I guess, their eye test or whatever. But yeah, I mean, just egregious, but also hilarious. I mean, just absolutely peak content that we have been able to receive from this over the last couple of days. Just good content.
Great tweets.
I'm glad it didn't happen to me.
Amazing takes.
And the unfortunate part is, like, you see the repercussions of it. Like, damn near every Florida State player is like, I'm out. put me on like Mississippi State, and I'll have at least a fighting chance to go to the playoffs at this rate.
Yeah,
they canceled the Orange Bowl
press conference
for tomorrow because neither team gives zero craps about that game.
Yeah,
did they really?
Yeah, they canceled the press conference.
Oh,
yeah. So I don't know exactly why, but that seems to be a motivation issue.
No, the scheduling conflict, man.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Recruiting. It's recruiting season. Okay, so I'll preface my comments by saying I do think Florida State probably should have gotten it. Being 13-0 in a Power 5 conference, you should probably get in, right? That should be the standard. Now, in my mind, I was kind of like, I understood either way they went with it. Okay, because the one example that gets brought up constantly is Ohio State in 2014, right? Do you guys remember what the score of the Big Ten championship game was in 2014? It was 59-0.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, against a Wisconsin team that's kind of comparable. They finished the season 10-3. So they're pretty comparable to that Louisville team. So 59-0 is a little bit different than what happened in the ACC championship game. Now, the other part of it is it's not the offense didn't go from being good, which they were pretty good, metrically pretty good, but they weren't as elite as you think. They were 27th in the country in yards per play. But against Florida, they were under 4 yards per play. Vanderbilt was over 6 yards per play. McNeese State was the only school for Charlotte team we saw USF dominate had more yards per play against Florida than Florida State did. So you went from a good offense to literally under 4 yards per play in both games, which is worse than Iowa's offense. So you went from a great offense to worse than Iowa. Now, like I said, I do think if you're not letting teams in because when they go undefeated, the games have to matter, right? Winning should matter. So I do think they should have got in. But this also, the only exception I take is people are acting like this is the first time this has ever happened. This is how it used to be all the time. And Florida State has actually been on the good end of this quite a few times. In 2000, they lost to Miami head-to-head and then beat Miami in the computers to play Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl for a national championship. Oklahoma won. Miami playing in the Orange Bowl, there was a lot of the same, probably a more talented team than that 2001 team. Pretty close because they lost guys like Santana Moss. They lost a couple dudes off that team going into the next year. 1993, a team went undefeated, 12-0, or maybe an 11-0 back then, in a power conference, and a one-loss team jumped them. Do you know who that was?
Oh, it's going to be Florida, isn't it?
West Virginia.
Oh, my God.
Beat 4 top 25 teams, including number 4 Miami. Florida State lost to Notre Dame. Florida State got the national championship game against Nebraska. West Virginia went and played Florida in the Sugar Bowl. It's kind of the same thing. It's happened before. Now, you'd think with the playoff, you're hoping that alleviates it, but How many power conferences do we have? 5.
2.
How many spots in the playoffs do we have?
You meant like real.
Yeah,
sorry.
now, right? How many?
My
5,
apologies.
right? 5. How many spots in the playoffs do we have? 4. This thing was set up poorly from the beginning. This was kind of they lucked out, and then the last thing, which it's tough, but this is kind of this year was supposed to be the first year of the 12-team playoff. When Oklahoma and Texas went to the SEC, the alliance got created. They were the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC. There were 3 votes against the 12-team playoff: the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC. So
the alliance accomplished
screwed
so much.
The alliance basically screwed everyone but the Big Ten. It was like a sleeper cell by Kevin Warren or whoever before he left.
They held the cards behind their back and
right
knew
before
what
he leaves for the Bears.
And then but again, so to me that's kind of like, I do think it sucks. I do think Florida State should have gotten it because winning should matter. I thought about it as a coach. If my team went undefeated and they're just like, hey, sorry, that would be brutal. And it would be really tough to turn to the players and be like, you guys did everything I asked you to. Sorry. Like, that would suck. So I do feel for them. But this is not like new. And this is not crazy. And I understand it. But I do think it sucks. And I do agree with you guys that it's stupid. I wish we were at 12 teams already. And the worst part is, like you said, Nate, if you give FSU a month, I think their coaches are pretty good. They'll figure something out to be competitive with that defense. But
and even if they don't, and you get blown out, how many semifinals have been blowouts so far?
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State got blown out by Clemson. Alabama destroyed a Michigan State team, destroyed a Washington team. It's one of those where you got to give them the opportunity. And I get where this is coming from, and we'll move forward. And we start talking about the actual playoff. That yes, Alabama's a good team, and you see Michigan's reaction to having to play Alabama. It's a lot different than they.
I think some of that was just shock that the committee actually.
Yeah, well,
it.
Yeah, you can't.
I was not scared of Alabama, and I reacted similarly.
What I do like to look at that 2014 Ohio State team that had Cardell Jones. He went 12 for 17 for 257, 3 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott, 20 carries for 220 yards. Curtis Samuel had a couple touchdowns. You know who else was on that team? Von Bell, Doran Grant, Joey Bosa. Yeah. That team was freaking stacked, and they had the opportunity to do that. And you know what? Florida State looked much better when they had the Wildcat going with Toafili in the backfield. I don't know why they just didn't stick with it and try to score more points, but you play to win the game. And I think the impression was, if we win the game, that's all that needs to happen. Yeah. And you opened yourself up for is the playoff. It was supposed to stop all these, dual national championships pre-BCS, and you've opened yourself up for that. And I know everyone's going to say, well, they weren't in the playoff, but you go ahead, and they want to be motivated and they can beat Georgia. You go and put that billboard up right across the street from the CFP offices. Tell Boo Corrigan, hey, guess what? You did that.
Just a quick aside, only 5 of the 18 semifinal games have been within 1 score, and 2 of them were last year.
Yeah. It's been poor, but they've also never left out an undefeated team. So maybe that's the trick. Yeah, it's a weird one. I do think that I think this Florida State team would have, that defense has kind of cranked it up a notch, but the offense has been so bad. But like against Michigan, I think they match up well against Michigan. So
Michigan doesn't have a quarterback either, so it'd be
I think they match up well. The other one
is McCarthy is trash. Let's.
I cannot tell. I can't tell. They don't ever need him. He played all right
against Ohio State.
He played all right against Ohio State. They don't need him. They haven't needed him all year in most of these games to do anything.
Why didn't Michigan get dinged for not needing a quarterback?
I mean,
Florida State and them are basically the same spot.
I don't think Michigan's some unassailable. I think the Big Ten's a little overrated this year, personally. Like, I think Michigan's got going off reputation. Now, they did also wax people all year. Like, they didn't have a goal-to-go situation for the first 10 games of the year on defense.
Yeah,
that's the other part of it. Florida State
really
Florida State kind of kind of played with their food for a lot of the year. They would end
Yeah.
the first 2 games. That's kind of my other thing with them. How many halves of elite football, like number 1 team in the country football, did they play? How many quarters of it? I know the second half against LSU, that's 2. But what are the next? What are the rest? Can you name like a stretch where it's like they were like Clemson probably should have beaten them. They missed a field goal. Like I said, that Florida team, the defensively, you probably got 8, like or 7 to the last 3. But it sucks. But this has always been a sport that's style points have mattered regardless of what they say. So,
yeah,
if Florida State would have been crushing everybody all year, they would have got in.
Moving on.
All right. So this week we do have 1 game left. You want to go to that, or do you want to talk about preseason stuff? Because
up to you guys.
Let's. What do you? Steve, your choice.
Let's respect the troops.
All right,
let's give them their due diligence.
We'll let the troops go first here.
Yeah.
All right. So this is really going to test some people here. Army is a 3.5-point favorite against Navy in the annual Army-Navy game. This is what's going to test you. The over-under is at 27.5. There's a blind fire the unders on Service Academy games. Is that too low to fire under, or has Iowa made this seem a little bit more reasonable? Has the season of Iowa football made this 27.5 number seem pretty large?
Well, according to Grace McDermott from DraftKings Nation, shout out to DraftKings Nation, Service Academy unders since 2005 are 42-9-1. So, is it too much? Maybe not. These games, both teams always really get up for this. Commander-in-Chief trophies on the line, at least if Army wins. From what I understand, if Navy wins, then it's kind of like a weird. It goes back to whoever did it because Army beat Air Force. But 42-9-1, it's pretty good. It didn't hit last year, but Service Academy unders as consistent as
let's call that a trend.
There you go. Death, taxes, Service Academy unders.
So Vito, does that mean you are taking the under 27.5?
Absolutely. I've been doing unders all year with Iowa, and I'm not going to stop here. I got too excited and did a couple overs in the conference championship weekend that killed me, brought me back to 500. So I'm going to go back to the old wishing well. I'm going under 27.5. I think this will be your typical Army-Navy game, and you're going to get like 13-10 or something.
I think it's very much in play. Is anybody joining Vito on the under here? Oh, I thought we'd have some more Undertakers here. Patent copyright WWE, Mark Calloway. Speaking of the Undertaker, WWE needs a bowl game, right? Like after seeing the belt on the field of the Big 12 championship, why doesn't the WWE have a bowl game?
Oh, dude, it's only a matter of time.
How great would that be?
No, like now I think it's only a matter. It's only like I mean, we have like a million roof claim insurance places. It's only a matter of time before you'll see Triple H and Nick Khan presenting some kind of weird title belt in a bowl game.
It would have to be in Tampa just to make the travel easy for the rest of it.
I surmised that on Twitter during this game because I was like, this would be the greatest thing of all time. You could give the winning coach could get a belt, and the loser could get some type of finishing move done on them. A Stone Cold Stunner, I think it seems like it, but any a choke slam, just a power slam or something would be awesome. Like this could be the most fun bowl game of the year.
That'd be incredible.
Played in the cage.
I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and give my Army Navy pick. I'll go with Army. Like I'm staying away from this total. I know like Army Service Academy unders all of that, but like 27, dude. Even still, like I'm gonna lean with Army. It's been a very funky season for both of these schools, like kind of up and down. Army had like a 5-game losing streak at one point, but then they were able to figure some things out, close out the season. I think I was just listening to Split Zone Duo, and they were mentioning how like they tried to kind of go away from the option, but then realized it wasn't working. So it's like, all right, we got to run the OG thing to get this back on track, and it worked. They won 3 straight, so I'm just gonna ride the hot hand and take Army to cover as a 3-point favorite here. They've had the upper hand in this rivalry for quite some time now, which is a flip from what Navy had with their streak going. So I'm taking Army.
Yeah, I'm jumping in with you. I'm taking Army as well. Monken seems to have done a really good job in this rivalry, and like you said, they've kind of flipped it a little bit. And you can't go against our guy Danny Verpale.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to ride with him. So I'm taking Army as well. Nathan, what are you doing here? What are you doing to this one? Do you dare take the over?
Oh, absolutely not. There is a case to be made for the over, and I will lay that out for you. But Army minus 3.5. This Navy team stinks. They're so unathletic. It's not even funny. But dating back to 2010, just last 12, 13 years, just going off the 27.5 number, only 5 times has that game, or excuse me, only 4 times has that game been under 27.5. So even when things are bad, like that 15 nothing game in 2020 was brutal. The last year's game was brutal. I think Navy in either 2021 or 2022. I think it was 2022. They were driving down to like score and like missed a field. Like it was just brutal. It could have gone over. The total was 37 last year, 30 the year before, 38 in 2019. It can get pointsy regardless. Especially
I feel like we've gotten some higher, like high 30s totals usually for this game, like in terms of like the over under being like high 30s, 40ish. Like 27.5 feels low, but it keeps cashing. So I don't know. Steeg, what do you have in the Army Navy game? Do you dare take the over?
Absolutely not. Let me get one thing abundantly clear. This game sucks. Like respectfully. No respect to the troops at this point.
Army Navy respectfully disavow.
I'm about to get kicked off YouTube. This game sucks, man. Like this game used to be the new rules kind of make this game a little bit less fun because now more than ever we're seeing undersized offensive linemen who aren't very good at blocking, not tall receivers, not very fast running back. Like I don't think there's been a play longer than like 25 yards in like the last like 30 Army Navy games. Like it's just
am I gonna have to fact check you live?
Yeah, you can fact check me.
Yeah,
they definitely had like a long touchdown.
Just look to last year's game.
Probably it's probably happened before, but like now more than ever, it is literally just like 2 dudes with rocks, just throwing them at each other relentlessly for 60 minutes, and then Army's oversized kicker comes out and kicks a 22-yard chip shot to win the game because the game only took an hour and 45 minutes because these teams do nothing but run the ball for the entire time. But Army's better at it
Paul
right now.
Jr. had a 77-yard touchdown run for Navy last year.
There you go.
It did, and it wasn't a chip shot field goal, but it did end in double overtime with a 39-yard field goal.
And then you had a 25-yard run in overtime, a 25-yard pass in overtime.
Yeah, those overtime stats don't count. We all know that.
And I personally think that if the over hits after overtime, it doesn't count.
It should not count. Yeah, that's possible.
Also, the game's on Saturday, right?
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be just absolutely miserable weather at Gillette Stadium. It is going to be like 25 degrees.
Oh, Steve,
that's football weather.
I saw 40s earlier. I gotta check that out.
Oh, my Apple map said that it is going to be a balmy 24 degrees.
Ooh, maybe that was today then.
Maybe that is probably today. But either way, it's going to be cold. It's going to be miserable. Throw the game on, have some fun, watch Army win by like, I don't know, 4.
So is Army Army so does that mean Army's your pick after you insulted 2 branches of the military for
I'll go for 3. Air Force was frauds all year.
Oh,
wow, man, you were just You're gonna get man.
I'm
We're
gonna
going
get
to get Steve
No, but,
started on the
sprint-
prep schools and trying to follow recruiting for the academy.
yeah.
Saturday, high of 52, low of 38.
Still
10%
football
chance of
weather.
precipitation. Come on.
Yeah, but
Ooh.
if you really want to enjoy Army Navy football, sprint football, Army Navy game, so much more fun to watch. Oh my god, it's incredible. They are just they literally have rocks they throw them at each other the entire time.
I, for one, enjoy the option football. It's more of a refined taste, but that's all right. Speaking of Navy, in the preseason, Nathan Bond decided to disrespect the troops and take Navy under 6.5. And guess what? He cashed.
Cash,
So let's
baby.
go back and look at some of our preseason picks, and we can pick. I think I have the worst one by far, so that's good. We can talk about my psychosis there. All right, interesting trends. Not a single person hit on their over pick. Nathan and I both took Florida. They blew it.
Arkansas.
It lined up perfectly for Vito with Maryland. Vito came and said they're probably going to start 5 or 6-0. Like Vito had it nailed just about to how they're going to start. He's like, they need to win 2 more from there. And they were close, but they did not go over 7.5.
Stupid
Miami.
Northwestern.
Miami. What can you say about Miami? The knee debacle. It just wasn't. You can't trust Mario. That's Nathan. That's a Nathan Bond from way back. You cannot trust a Mario Cristobal team. He's the only person that took him under last year, I think.
What was their total again?
7.5.
See, the Georgia Tech. Oh my God, Georgia Tech game.
You can't trust Mario.
Oh,
And then
man.
Stieg went with Stieg's underpick may be the best one in terms of expectations, but Stieg took UTEP over 5.5. They struggled this year. Coach got fired.
Fucking Middle Tennessee State.
So nobody hit the over, but the under, we did a little bit better. I had Tennessee under 9.5 wins. They won 8. They were the busters I thought they might be. Nathan, as we said, had Navy under 6.5. They have 5 wins going into the Army game, so that one's going to cash, even though their season's not over. Stieg had TCU under 7.5 wins. He didn't buy the hype. He didn't believe the transfer portal. What a great pick. And then Nick and Vito both just missed. Nick had Oklahoma minus 9.5, which they tried to do. And really, that Texas game feels a little fluky after the fact. It felt a little fluky in the moment. But looking back, Oklahoma tried to screw around and lose one more game, but they ended up winning 10. And then Cal was at 5, or they ended up winning 6. Just missed those. So we did better on the unders and the overs.
3-game winning streak they ended, including a 33-7 romp of UCLA. I thought I had that in the bag.
It looked good. It was looking
good.
good.
Gosh.
Yeah. Fighting for the job. It was Wilcox fighting for the job. So, and then we all had to pick a conference winner, but we could not pick somebody that was top 2 in preseason odds, which I think if you go back and look, I don't know if anybody that wasn't top 2 won the conference. I'd have to think about that. Maybe Washington wasn't top 2. That would probably be the one. But they might have been. I can't remember if they were. But, I mean, Liberty was the odds-on favorite in their conference. Florida State was 1 or 2 with Clemson. Alabama was 1 or 2 with Georgia. Texas was 1. You know, there was maybe Troy was probably the favorite. Maybe Miami, Ohio, maybe. They might have been all right. I don't know. It seemed a pretty chalky year. But so nobody hit on one of those. Nathan and I both took UTSA. They were 3rd in the American. SMU thought might be 3rd, but they weren't. They ended up being 2nd, so they were another one in the top 2. Vito took Oregon State, which had chances. I mean, they were in the mix until the very end there.
Mm-hmm.
Nick took Utah. who I think if you knew that Cam Rising if Kyle Whittingham wasn't a liar for the whole preseason, and you would have known that Rising wasn't going to play, that probably changes that pick. And then Stieg had Penn State plus 550. They were kind of in both those games, but it also felt like they weren't in both those games. It was weird. The defense was good enough to make that pick work. The offense was not. So, but Stieg, you are the one of the only two to pick a Heisman finalist as your Heisman Trophy winner. This was another one you couldn't pick one of the favorites. You had to pick somebody with a little bit longer odds. Stieg took Marvin Harrison Jr. at plus 2,000. He's a finalist. Probably going to end up being fourth in the voting.
Hey.
Not too bad.
That's not bad. Not bad.
For plus 2,000. Vito took Michael Penix Jr.
Yes.
Plus 1,600. So another pretty good pick. Now, I don't think any of these are going to cash because it certainly seems like Jaden Daniels is probably going to be the guy. Nate took Jordan Travis, which even if you finish the year, I don't think he ends up getting invited, but Florida State was obviously successful enough that he could have been one of those guys. Nick took Drew Allar, just didn't take the jump. And then I, anticipating Clemson's rise back to supremacy over Florida State, took Will Shipley plus 6,000. Not even close. I think he might have ended the season as the second string running back. Is actually how it might have ended.
Oh my gosh!
So I thought that Garrett Riley offense would really fit him, and he could take off. It did not happen. So that was probably the worst pick out of all of them. Yeah, he ended up with like 400 or 500 less yards than he had the season before. So
Will
great.
Shipley.
Well, there are a couple of weeks where Shipley was hurt, towards the middle-ish point of the season, and then I forget the name of the other running back, but he was also pretty good. So they just kind of did a two-headed monster thing at the end of the season.
I knew during the Duke game when I saw them splitting time that this pick was probably in trouble. Phil Maffa had a pretty good year. So, so it took about a half of football for me to realize I'd made a terrible choice. So that was good. But the only other thing we picked, USF over or under 4 wins. Vito and I both took over. Nathan and Nick, not believers in goalish, both took under.
I remember why I didn't pick.
And Stieg did not pick. I'm not sure if he wasn't here, but we did not get a pick on record for Stieg. But he may have had.
I said I didn't want to. I said I voted present, if I recall correctly.
Oh, well, that may be true. So,
pour one out to Coach Goach.
Goach? Goach?
The Goach. Coach Go.
Kogo.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I think I'm pretty sure Nathan and Nick both said this team was at the point where you had to see it to believe it, and they did it. So I think they made it to 6, baby. Making it to 5 was a big deal. Making it to 4 was big. So yeah, great season for USF, and we can kind of end on that note. What do you guys want to do for the bowl? You want to just do the playoff? The bowl, picking these bowl games would be like herding cats. It seems like a really bad, bad way to go about it. We'll talk about them, but picking them seems like a fool's errand.
Think how fun that would be. Each week we see how many of that we just kind of rapid fire through them. If anyone's got, I think that would be hilariously fun.
I think we need to record it like at noon during the day, and so that we can get like a live update. That's like, I really think Marshall's going to do well. Oh, their quarterback just transferred, so let's count that.
I think we've got a little bit over a week till the first game. Maybe we can start a bowl pick'em and invite listeners to join in, and we'll do it that way.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do an ESPN bowl pick'em.
We'll do something like that. So that'll be a little more fun, and it won't be a big stain on our just beautiful record here. We've got a beautiful record. I'm not letting some young man thinking about his own future selfishly opt out and ruin our record. So we're not going to do that. All right. So our picks for this week. Everybody likes Army. Vito likes the under 27.5. So Army winning 10-0 would be beautiful. It'd be perfect. Root for Army winning 10-0.
Future American Athletic Conference member Army.
Yes, that'll be fun. And I'm sure USF will have to play Army and Navy next year, and that'll be not so much fun.
Back-to-back weeks.
All right. That's it for another week of the Blog Boy Roundtable. If you disagree with our picks, if you disagree with our playoff rhetoric, leave a comment. If you agree, like, subscribe. Help us game the YouTube algorithm. We'll be back next week. We'll talk some Heisman Trophy. Oh, who's going to win the Heisman? Last thing. Does anybody think it's not Jaden Daniels?
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I'm going to roll Michael Penix. He was my preseason pick, so let's go. Plus 6,000. Plus
1,600.
Plus 1,600.
Vito's got the cash ticket here. Nick, what do you think? Is it Daniels locked up? He has had like the greatest season of all time in terms of EPA.
Yeah.
Like better than Burrow.
I was thinking just by virtue of being in the playoff, maybe like Penix, but no, I think it's Daniels. I think Daniels will have that wrapped up because he had an amazing season.
My one wrinkle, or my one question that makes me think, could it be tighter, right? Because there's regional voting. Bo Nix is a son of Alabama, the South. Do you think he's second on every ballot in the South?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
No, because he's from Auburn and everyone hates Auburn. So
I guess Penix is also from Florida too. So maybe that could be part of it. But I just thought Nix being a guy that played in the SEC, I wonder if he gets some. I would imagine he's going to be second place on a lot of the Southern ballots. So
they'll claim it as a championship.
And Jaden Daniels will probably be third out west. Or is it too national now that stuff doesn't matter as much?
I think it's too national, especially if there was one year where like everyone actually paid attention to the Pac-12, it was this year because both Washington and Oregon like had plenty of national exposures in these type of games. So
and they didn't play every week at 10 o'clock. They played some. Yeah. So, all right. That's it. We've got some variety of opinions on the Heisman. So we'll be back next week talking, maybe looking at the first week of bowl games, talking a little Heisman and any other news in college football. Thank you for watching.